One other tip I would recommend for both your right panel and your left panels, if you hover over it with your mouse and right click, come down here, solo mode. Now if it's not in solo mode, you can have these are all open and it can become a big clutter. So what you do, right click on it. When you're hovering on a blank area on the panels, right click and click on solo mode. That way you can open one of these little sections here, and then when you click on the next one, all others close, leaving only one of these open. So if I effects, or if I come up to HSL color B&W, you get the one and all others close. It helps create a nice clutter-free environment. Alright, now we can start on the processing part. Even though I've already worked on some photos before and I can show you just how to do a photo I've already worked on, you know what I decided to do? Let's work on a photo together, a new one I haven't done before. And I'm looking at this photo that you're seeing right here. I actually kind of like it because of the way the Milky Way is and the cool clouds around. Let's just have some fun then, new photo. So the first step I always do, always, is come over here, look at the, well first, check, make sure it is sharp enough. And let it load here. Yep, we're good. It looks good. This is 64, my 5D Mark II at 6400 ISO. I'm at 35 seconds. It's just starting to show some signs of star trails, so that has maximum exposure length. But next step though actually is come over here and the white balance. Make sure that everything's where I want it to be. Double check. Since my work is kind of an artistic expression, I do kind of fine tune white balance. But if you're kind of more of a documentarian style photographer, if you prefer to keep the colors 100% natural, the Milky Way, which is 34 to 3800 Kelvin temperature, that's fine. For me, I like adding a little bit of magenta. I usually keep it around here, same intent, but add a little bit of magenta. But just say a little trip, if you are a documentarian style photographer or someone who prefers to keep a natural color, one way to guarantee a perfect color balance is to bring vibrancy and saturation up 100%. And it looks pretty wacky, I know, but the idea is for temperature, make sure you kind of have an even between blues and yellows, and that's actually pretty good. And right there, 3650 looks pretty good. And for tint, kind of keep an even between green and magenta color. So let's bring it up. That's getting too much magenta here. Let's see, come down, see how it goes all green. Well, let's bring it up. Let's see here. Let's find a good balance. Okay. Well, that looks like a good balance there. Let's bring it down. And that's kind of a neutral color or white balance right there. But me, I personally, I like adding a little less, too much magenta. You don't want that much. Unless you want to go real crazy. There you go. But no, just a touch of magenta. Just a hint, +4. Just add a little bit of magenta. Step number 2. Let's close this up real quick. So we come down to detail, and what we're going to do is just do a little bit of noise reduction. And as a matter of fact, this image is really not that bad, but we'll still do a little bit of noise reduction in Lightroom. Lightroom is not too bad in noise. There are other programs I will show later that are actually much better, but for just basic raw processing, we'll just bring luminance noise reduction up to probably about 25. You don't really need to go too much higher because it does a good enough job to reduce a significant amount of that noise. See how much less it is. Let's bring it down here real quick. See that difference right there? It's quite a bit of difference. Yeah, it takes a little bit to process, but and boom, right there. You go too far, and all of a sudden you're just going to blur your image. And as you can see already, how much is blurring. So in reality, actually, the luminance noise reduction is just a little too much. I'm going to just bring it down a tiny bit, and let's just do about 20. 20 will probably be quite good. And there we go. That actually looks really nice. No problem there. Yeah, it brought about a little bit of noise, but it doesn't blur. The more noise reduction you add, the more it blurs an image. So you kind of want to create a nice little happy balance between noise and blurring. If you do go too far, let's go to 26. Or actually, what I had it before, which is actually 26. And we might even just stick with that, to be honest. Let's bring it up. What I'm going to do is bring up a little bit of detail. I usually, if I do bring up detail, it's usually defaulted at 50. I'll bring it up to about 70. And that just kind of sharpens some of the edges a little bit. Just enough. Now, if you go too much with detail, let's go way up. You actually bring up back a lot of noise and artifacting, so let's just bring it back down. 70 is good. Plus 60, 70 is good. Bring back some of that information and detail without adding any noise and artifacting. Next step. Since there is some light pollution in here, I'll actually come over here, and I usually do this anyways, is bring the highlights down just a little bit. Just a little bit to balance out all the excessive light here. But since for the Milky Way, it's vital to work on a lot of contrast, and since there's a lot of bright stars here, I also bring up whites. And I bring it up quite a bit, just enough to really make these stars glow good. And then contrast. You need a lot of contrast. Well, now that you bring up contrast a little bit, you kind of lose detail in the foreground. But in an image like this, I'm not too concerned about detail. There's got a little bit here, and that's plenty for an image like this. I'm more interested with having an outline and then the Milky Way. Next up, and this I really like. Come down here to where tone curve is, and you come where it says highlights. And this really does an amazing work. You bring highlights on a tone curve up. And if you see what it's doing here, don't worry about the clouds. Look at this area, the bright area of the Milky Way. Really, let me bring it all the way up. Look how much it makes it glow. Just bring it out. See, it looks kind of flat a little bit, but bring it out. Oh yeah, now you're gonna showing us a little bit of clip up here, a star here. Normally you don't want any blown highlights, but I'm not too concerned about that little star up there. As a matter of fact, it's got some distortion from the lens, so we might fix that in Photoshop, but look at the glow. And really don't need that much, so I'll still bring it down. Maybe about there. Now, the Milky Way is really kind of popping, and I'm going to go to the brush and just kind of eliminate some of this over here. Cloud, darken a little bit so it's not so bright. Don't want to go too far because then it's going to look fake. And we'll just do whites. There. That's actually light pollution on that cloud. This town is Silverthorne in Summit County. One of the last things I like to do in Lightroom before moving on to Photoshop, since Lightroom is basically a raw processing program and all the heavy-duty editing is done in Photoshop, one of the last things I like to do is looking at the Milky Way and just strictly the Milky Way alone. Nothing else. Just come up here to the brush tool and just some clarity. Just come over to here to the clarity and just brush it in real quick. Just real quick, and that actually helps kind of sharpen and bring out some of the definition between the bright areas. And let me close it real quick. And if you notice, these dark areas are dust lanes. All those little things here are actually dust. And bringing the clarity up just in the Milky Way area, nowhere else, kind of helps bring that definition and separation between the bright starlit areas and the dust lanes. Don't want to go too far, but I'm going to see. I'm going to push it a little more. Just see. Make sure it doesn't look too fake. Okay, about something like that. Maybe bring whites up a little bit. Just kicks and giggles. Just play around a little bit. Nope, definitely not that. Oh, we'll look good. And nah, I'll stick with just a clarity. Sometimes you can play around with the contrast. Let's bring contrast up. See, nah, just a clarity. From here on out, I'll do some more dodging and burning in the Milky Way and some other sharpening in Photoshop. And that's pretty much it with Lightroom.